Today we are back in the latest generation Ford Mustang Ecoboost. Last time I had one of these cars on this road, I came away mostly unimpressed. I thought the Brembo brakes, Magnerai dampers, and Recaro seats were all excellent, but I pointed out that none of those things are manufactured by Ford. All of the actual Ford components of this car, the engine, the transmission, and the rest of the chassis tuning, well, they just weren't that impressive. But today we're in a different example. As you can see, no Recaro seats. This one also doesn't have the optional Magnerai dampers, which are, I believe, around an $1,800 option, but this still does get the high performance package. It costs just under $3,500 and it gives us a 3.55 Torsen rear axle instead of the regular 3.15, 19 by 9 inch carbonized gray aluminum wheels, massive Brembo brakes, 6 piston up front, 4 piston in the rear, with 255/40/19 summer tires, a rear spoiler, a strut tower brace, and this pretty gimmicky hydraulic drift brake. This also has the optional performance exhaust, which costs $1,225. It's valved so you can close it in normal mode, and you can adjust that with the custom mode, which I'll show you once I get the car fired up. The Ecoboost Coupe Premium starts at $37,000. This one has been optioned all the way to $50,000. So in addition to the high performance package and the performance exhaust, which together are roughly a $4,700 extra cost, this also has the carbonized gray metallic paint with $6,000 matte clear film. It does make the car look unique. It stands out compared to the average Mustang out on the road. $6,000, oof. That's a tough pill to swallow. So this is powered by a 2.3 liter turbocharged inline 4-cylinder engine, making 315 horsepower, 350 pound-feet of torque, 10-speed, torque converter automatic transmission with paddles. No manual option for the Ecoboost. You have to go up to the Mustang GT with the V8 in order to get a manual. To be fair, I don't know how many enthusiasts out there would actually buy a 4-cylinder Mustang with a manual. There's something about the Mustang with a 4-cylinder that just doesn't sit right with a lot of people. I'm actually not necessarily one of them. Of course, I would rather have my Mustang with a 5-liter Coyote engine or a 5.2-liter Voodoo, but I do appreciate the benefits of a smaller engine when it comes to handling. Let's see if that actually pays off in this Ecoboost Coupe. This is more or less the same engine that's been used in the Ecoboost Mustangs for over 10 years now. Although this one, it has direct and port fuel injection, a smaller twin-scroll turbo for better low-end response, and an electronic wastegate. This is a 3,800 pound car though. Even with the Ecoboost motor, it is not a lightweight sports car. As you can see, very digitized infotainment and gauge cluster. I've been living with this car for the past week and I really despise this system. It's not as bad as the infotainment I had in the WRX TS I had a few months ago, but I mean, it's actually not far off. Look, there's literally a 1 to 2 second lag in the actuation. Every time you click something, you wait. And to make it worse, all the climate control buttons are on the screen. Big pet peeve of mine. Let's say you want to keep this car long term, 5 years, 10 years, even longer. What if the screen breaks? You no longer have the ability to turn the AC on. Just a really annoying fad that I hope goes away sooner rather than later. Otherwise, this interior is probably what you'd expect for a Mustang. It's not bad. They have made an effort to make things kind of softer touch with stitching and a textured material surrounding the vents, a wireless phone charger, USB-C and USB-A ports. This row of 6 buttons down here is baffling to me. It's just an assortment of random functions. Auto start stop, your custom mode button, traction control, hazards, a favorite button that you can customize to whatever you want, and your max defrost, along with a volume knob. Why this group of 6 buttons? Why couldn't we just get AC controls here? Steering wheel is fairly simple. Thankfully, the buttons on the left and right are pretty straightforward. You have most of your audio settings on the right, your cruise control and driving aids on the left. The only kind of weird choice is that the steering setting is integrated into the volume control pad, so you can control your steering weight. So if we do press this, My Mustang technically is what it's called, you do get some different options here. Track apps, auxiliary gauges. The only one that I'm really interested in, well, 2, the custom mode and the cluster theme. So in custom mode, you can set up to 6 different profiles. Not sure why you'd want that many. And then you can adjust various things like your steering, traction control, exhaust, engine auto start stop, and your gauges. So I'm a fan of the Fox body gauges. But see, I'm confused here because even when I set it to, let's say, SVT Cobra, it's set to profile 1. I assume that's saved. And then I use this mode button on the left of the steering wheel to put it into custom, which takes a while because of these ridiculous graphics. Where's the gauges I wanted? So I go back into custom mode, gauges, it's set to SVT Cobra. That is not what I'm seeing on the cluster. Honestly, don't know how this works. What am I doing wrong here? Maybe it's just user error. But anyhow, we're gonna drive this car in what I hope is the custom mode. Now I don't actually know because the gauges aren't matching up with what I set it to. Oh, denied me a downshift there. There's some turbo lag down low, but once you get up to around 3,000 RPM, the engine really comes to life. Oh yeah, the suspension feels so soft. Completely dead steering. We have it in the heaviest steering mode, and it's still too light with no feedback. Look, the engine has a lot of power and a lot of mid-range torque, but this chassis feels so floppy because of that suspension. I wish this had the Magnerite dampers. But I'm surprised because I've been living with this car for the past week, and on the road the suspension actually feels pretty firm. But the moment I start taking these corners a bit harder, it just feels like it wants to roll over. That's the opposite of what I want. I want it to feel soft on a daily basis, but nice and firm when I start driving more aggressively. Yeah, lots of mid-range torque. Red line looks to be around 63 to 6,400 RPM. The Brembo brakes feel okay. They have plenty of stopping power, but the pedal feel isn't that great. I noticed while driving around town, it's very touchy, very sensitive at low speed. It makes low speed maneuvering a bit tricky. And then out here, the pedal's a little bit softer than I would like. Oh, yeah. And this engine, even with the performance exhaust, it just makes this blaring, uninspired 4-cylinder sound. But there are 4 cylinders that sound a lot better than this, and this 10-speed auto. The shift speed actually is pretty good. It's not slow by any means, but it's not smooth at all. There's a jerk on both the upshift and the downshift that actually feels substantial enough to potentially slightly upset the balance of the car mid-corner. And the 10-speed's gearing, they space the gears so close together that every time you upshift, the RPMs only drop a few hundred RPM. So it's constantly shifting, so you're constantly feeling the lurchiness of this transmission because it's so unsmooth. And I don't think this engine particularly needs a very closely geared transmission because there's plenty of mid-range torque. Just let the engine do its thing. Like right there, we were in 5th gear. Front end of the car actually is pretty good. There's plenty of front grip. I can tell there's not that much weight up front, so the car turns pretty eagerly, but it's just so numb. There's no communication through the steering. There's so little load up behavior in the corners. I have no idea what the front tires are doing. Overall, this sense of laziness to the car in the steering, the brake feel, the throttle response, the transmission for sure. Oh, definitely not a driver's car by any means. Not that, you know, a Mustang GT is the best handling car in its segment either, but at least you get the pleasure of that high revving naturally aspirated V8 with that 6-speed manual. Here, there's so few redeeming qualities. The transmission is a disappointment, the steering is dead, as it is in the S650 Mustang GT as well. Unfortunately, this one doesn't have the Magnaride dampers, which improve this car based on the last one I drove, but it doesn't transform it either. Every shift is so jerky here. Shifting from 3rd gear to 4th at redline, the RPMs go from 6,400 to like 5,900. And then if you keep the transmission in auto mode, whether you're in track or sport, the transmission shifts so aggressively and early. So clearly, I am not a big fan of the S650 Mustang Ecoboost. I definitely preferred the last example I drove, which had the Recaro seats and Magnaride dampers. By the way, I actually don't have any issue with these seats. They're very comfortable. The seating position, I can get it nice and low. The bolstering is so-so, but hey, for a base seat, actually very comfortable seat. But everything else about this car, the soulless 4-cylinder engine, the jerky and way too short geared 10-speed auto, the dead steering, the soft suspension without the Magnaride dampers. The Brembo brakes, I can give a pass, but again, the pedal feel is not great. And at low speed, they're very touchy. And the interior of the car, I absolutely hate this infotainment system. The menus are so over-designed. The graphics, why do I need a 2 to 3 second animation every time I try to change modes? It's actually really distracting because then it moves the speedo over here to just this digital readout. Daily driving comfort wise, this car is fine. It rides a bit firm, but certainly not a deal breaker. At least it's easy to drive with the light controls, and we do have lane keep assist and adaptive cruise. At $50,000, I would not buy this car. Maybe if you just want a Mustang as a cruiser that still gets reasonable fuel economy, I think this averages 24 miles per gallon, then just go for a regular EcoBoost Coupe Premium. I'm actually not sure if I'd go for the performance package. The 3.55 final drive, I don't think is actually helping this car much because, as I mentioned, this 10-speed is already geared insanely short. And definitely skip the performance exhaust. It just makes an already uninspired engine tone sound even more unpleasant. But let me know what you think about the S650 Mustang EcoBoost Coupe. Do you find it as disappointing as I do? And I only say this because I've driven multiple Mustangs, different generations, different trims, and there are some fantastic Mustangs out there. The last gen GT350, GT350R, the Mach 1, the Dark Horse, even with its numb steering, even the current generation S650 Mustang GT. But let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.